Whether you grew up watching Toonami or discovered anime through other mediums, you have undoubtedly heard of Yu Yu Hakusho. From a spirit gun to deformed Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the anime has found its way into the hearts of many, securing its place as one of the greatest shonen battle anime of all time. And with the release of the Netflix adaptation, I found there to be no better time to share my love for the series by tackling one of the video game adaptations. But unfortunately, my options were pretty slim. It's safe to say if you played Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament, you fall into one of two categories. Either you think the game is terrible, or you would enjoy it for the nostalgia and because, well, we just didn't have any other options. You see, the 2004 release received mixed reviews by critics, and arguably even worse reviews by the fans.
I've got better things to do with my time than waste it with you.
But in retrospect, was it really that bad? To come to a conclusion I felt confident in sharing with the world, I replayed it 19 years later. And in this video, we'll discuss why this game is considered to be a failure, if in retrospect there's any redeeming qualities to it, and also why now is the perfect time for a Yu Yu Hakusho renaissance. When beginning your playthrough, you'll notice the main menu screen is almost surprisingly well designed. Not that it's anything special, but the overall look, color scheme especially, just definitely feels like a Yu Yu Hakusho product. Also, there's a significant amount of modes, 9 to be exact, which is relatively high for a game of this genre. But many are bland and seem to be just there to pad out the game, or at least make it appear larger than it actually is. Let me give you some examples. Survival and Arcade could easily function as separate mini modes inside of a larger mode like Skirmish. Also, there's legitimately a mode for credits, which I can imagine was the highlight of the game. In all seriousness, the main attraction here is Dark Tournament, which functions as the campaign of the game. There's 31 chapters in this mode, each containing a distinct battle that took place during the second arc of the anime, properly titled the Dark Tournament Saga. While, like many, I do love this arc, I did find it a bit odd the game chose to only encompass one arc instead of delving into the earlier stories or even the Sensui arc, but we can chalk that up to personal preference. What I will say is that from first glance, the story mode and by proxy the character roster does do the series justice, showcasing damn near every fight in this legendary arc. And that, my friend, is a feat that most likely wouldn't be accomplished had they decided to go with multiple arcs in the game. But all that aside, you'll quickly pick up on why this game garnered mixed reviews. I bet it's something bad. Starting off, unfortunately, with some negatives. The mechanics, while not abominably terrible, are absolutely no good, especially for a game that's this challenging. That said, the controls feel extremely clunky and downright unresponsive at times. Certain inputs just will not generate the outcome the game promises. For instance, some combos, although laid out for you in black and white during the Genkai training portion, simply will not work, although doing them correctly.
I still don't see how this matters.
Arguably, having a learning curve for mechanics and having specific special moves be more strenuous to pull off than other ones can be a good thing, but they still shouldn't be nearly impossible to master. Also, ringing out opponents can be all but the press of a button, 2 buttons technically, by just using your grab move near the edge of the ring. If in the right positioning, some characters can also spam a special move to ring out their opponents, and some can be damn near impossible to avoid. This makes for extremely unbalanced gameplay and also broken characters. And the most broken character of them all is younger Tagoro. Not only is he the best to play as, but playing against him in story mode is damn near impossible to beat. Just when you think you're making headway, my guy will pull off a combo that can legitimately decimate your entire health bar with no way to block or counter it. Now, don't get me wrong, I can definitely appreciate a good challenge in games, and it certainly makes for some good content. But this is completely ridiculous. Your only hope is to cheese your way to victory with a strategized combination of leg sweeps and jumping spirit guns. Now, speaking of spirit guns, the character signature moves look good enough. These are nothing compared to the likes of Budokai, visually or even mechanically, but some of Yusuke's can be really enjoyable to pull off, and generally not intolerable to use, and I actually loved using Kuwabara's spirit sword. But I mean, how can you not love Kuwabara, dude? Also, I think Hiei's Dragon of Darkness Flame and some of Kurama's special moves are the most visually appealing ones. Also, I will say some of the characters' non-spirit moves do feel very Yu Yu Hakusho-esque, like Yusuke's Rapid Punch. You know, it is hard to hate on these because in North America, this is the best animated Yu Yu Hakusho game that we ever received, but I just wish we got some ultimates that zoomed in on your character like Budokai 3 and did a little cutscene. But again, I enjoyed these. They're alright, and I had fun. But that being said, it's almost as though it would have been more respectable as an arcade fighter. Given the hit or miss mechanics, the overall vibe of the game just feels very arcade-like, and how broken the characters are in general. Like, I could see myself paying massive amounts of quarters, probably the entire value of the game, at like a Dave & Buster's or something. But I'm not one to harp on the game's flaws, if I did, at least in some respects, enjoy the game as a whole. Aside from personal reasons, the game's saving grace is its variations in the battles it offers. Nearly every battle will have specific criteria required to win. For instance, Kurama vs. Gamma took me ages to beat due to the handicap of starting at half HP. Also, this guy is freaking invisible. That definitely doesn't make things easier. Hiei, on the other hand, will need to defeat various enemies with his Dragon of the Darkness Flame. An interesting twist to a fight, but ultimately culminates in a very short and rather underwhelming victory at times. Hey, it looks pretty badass though, let's be real. There's also levels where Hiei can't use his sword, or even some where he's forced to only use one of his arms. And levels where Genkai, Masked Fighter, can only use Spirit Reflection Blast due to her giving all of her spirit power to Yusuke in a previous chapter. Definitely not Genkai.
So how about you let us see under those bandages now?
In my opinion, this structure saved the game for two reasons. Where most fighting games of its era, and still even to this day, follow the pattern of fight this opponent, beat this opponent, now fight an even stronger opponent. This differentiated and felt kind of refreshing. Nearly every level has some sort of a handicap to it, meaning the subsequent enemy you fight may or may not be more of a challenge than the last level, but they will surely bring forth a new obstacle to overcome. This creates an environment where you have to always be on your toes. For instance, the first enemy of a team may be night and day more difficult than the team leader, just because of their strategy. This being the case, you can't overly rely on spamming or the same tactics used on the last guy, which in turn keeps the game feeling surprisingly fresh throughout. Secondly, I can really appreciate the attention to detail here. Part of the reason the Dark Tournament arc is so beloved is because of the variety of captivating and unique fights that are involved in it. The tournament was just as much a battle of wits and strategy as it was of strength, and I think that's actually portrayed fairly well here. Now, to continue on the positive side of things, the cutscenes are straight from the anime, and I would have much rather them taken this route than for them to butcher the characters with original cutscenes or simply use unvoiced text to convey a basic portion of the plot, which I just have a gut feeling was the devs' plan B. There's also episode cards reminiscent of the anime before each chapter, which I don't have much to say about, but definitely feeds into my thirst for Yu Yu Hakusho nostalgia. However, even though the cutscenes are ripped from the anime, they still manage to skip over a lot of much needed context to understand more than just the absolute minimum of what the hell is going on here in between fights. So it's pretty clear the target audience was hardcore fans of the series, which I just don't think is a good strategy for any game to implement. Upon beating all chapters, you'll likely notice two things. One, 70% of your character roster is still not unlocked, and two, you've unlocked a new mode called Dark Tournament Plus. At this point, you'd rightfully expect, that's fine, I'll unlock the rest of the characters in Dark Tournament Plus, right? No. This mode requires you to play through the entire campaign again, only to add a few additional chapters that fill in some missing context in between battles. Similar to the original Budokai, if you're familiar with DBZ games. Only difference is, well, the additional cutscenes will set up a battle, only to throw you into the token game, one of the other 9 modes available. Now, I do need to give credit where credit is due. This mode is kind of fun and adds a bit of variety to the game while keeping a strategic nature. It plays like a modified version of the card game War, only in Yu Yu Hakusho style. Most of these tokens can be unlocked through your playthrough, usually by beating enemies. The number on the top left will determine how many points are added to your score, while the number on the bottom right, if you place the card correctly, will detract from the enemy's score. The game is over once all the card slots are filled, and whoever has the most points at the end wins the game. This can be a fun and unique way to pass some time, and does definitely again add to replayability. Only problem is, well, every additional chapter in Dark Torment Plus is the token game. And if I wanted to do that, I would just go to token game mode. So basically, in a nutshell, it's an entire mode used to promote another mode in the game. An odd choice, but nonetheless, at this point you may be asking yourself, so I just played through the entire campaign twice, only unlocking a few additional characters. Where do I unlock now the other 60% or so of the character roster? And that, my friend, is easier done than said. Well, no, not really. The roster totals to a fairly impressive 25 characters, accumulating to damn near every combatant the Urameshi team fights against in the arc. Some even having outfit changes available. But you'll notice that only about 1 per each enemy team has been unlocked as of yet. The rest require very specific requirements to unlock them. These can range from finishing a specific character's arcade mode or destroying 75% of the arena in one fight. Now, I do really appreciate them having certain requirements to unlock specific characters, as it does add to the replayability and explorability of the game, and it feels a lot more rewarding when finally getting the character you've been looking for, also encouraging more use of the additional modes. However, having this many missing characters post-campaign is a bit extreme. Once unlocked, these characters will mostly be used to play through the other modes in the game. I've seen a lot of criticism regarding every character feeling a bit too similar, but personally, as far as fighting games go, I didn't really get that vibe. Sure, a lot of the basic moves have some similarities, but they do incorporate just about every spirit move we see these characters utilize in the anime, which I thought was a fairly decent variety, and gave me reason to try each character in these additional modes. To start, arcade mode, which is very similar to an arcade game, will allow you to choose a character and, surprisingly, choose your final opponent, requiring you to fight through 10 battles to claim your victory. You will regain health after each bout. However, each next fighter will become progressively more and more difficult of an adversary. Similarly, survival will require you to fight 9 fighters in a row, but you will only regain a small percentage of your health after each win. These options are decent for their time, and I did have a fun time playing them. But again, I placed them together because they just don't feel like they justify having their own mode designated for them, as opposed to just simply being 2 options encompassed within a larger mode like Skirmish. Skirmish is this game's PvP, where you can choose to play against a friend or a CPU. You will have the option to play one-on-one or in tag team fashion, which is a 5v5 matchup, where you can switch between your fighters at any time, which is honestly a pretty cool addition. I'll give them that. This is also where you access Stage Select, where you can choose between any of the 10 available stages, which is a pretty nice lineup. But they are, okay for their time. Like, okay, in terms of animation, the character models look decent, but the stages, while they don't look terrible, they all just feel very bland and empty, especially when compared to other games that came out around this era. They do allow for some destruction of the environments, but most of the time, And side note, can we just talk about those loading screens for a second? I mean, what the hell happened here? It looks like a 5-year-old using Photoshop. Again, this is a clear reminder the game was absolutely rushed and came out looking very unpolished. This is unfortunate because the anime is goated, and the visuals and mechanics just do not do it the justice that it deserves. Also, from the gameplay I've watched, Yu Yu Hakusho Forever looks exactly like the game I've always wanted from this series. And on top of that, it was released only a year after this. How? Devastating we never got a Western release, and although unconfirmed, I have to blame that on the poor reception this game received. Moving on, beyond this there's options mode, which actually allows you to input cheats, like unlock all tokens and gain free spirit energy. I would only recommend this though if you absolutely cannot beat younger Toguro. And to be fair, in that case, I wouldn't blame you. Lastly, training mode is where you can learn the entire skill list of any character from Genkai. But I still can't figure out those damn 3 periods. Like, am I supposed to wait 3 seconds, or what does that mean? But before we do wrap this up, let's briefly discuss a few things. If this game really deserves all the hate it received, if in fact there are any redeeming qualities to it, and also why now is the perfect time for a Yu Yu Hakusho renaissance. It's safe to say this game is the definition of a mixed bag, and that's being really generous. The mechanics are awful, and the animation is below par. It just feels entirely too rushed and very sloppily pieced together. However, this game can be good fun, as it does offer quite a variety of challenges, and above all else, is a super nostalgic game for many fans of the series. I would love nothing more than a Budokai-inspired North American release, or even for us to get a port of Forever all these years later. Hell, I would still buy it, even at full price on Steam. But as it stands, this is the closest thing we have to a fighting game from the series that we all love so much. And for that reason, I can't say I hate it. But that being said, it's only a decent game in my eyes because there's nothing else to compare it to. And if we had more Yu Yu Hakusho games, I would probably despise it. So yes, with the release of the live action series, binge it 3 or 4 times, and maybe we'll see the return of Yusuke Urameshi in anime form. Perhaps a remake of the anime that expands upon the slightly underwhelming, but still good, Three Kings arc. Only time will tell if this theory comes to fruition. Yo, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys did enjoy, please give a like, comment below on what you want to see next and what you thought of the video, and subscribe. If this gets enough attention, I'll do a complete Yu Yu Hakusho video game series review, including the 2 GBA games that were released in North America, which I would absolutely love to do. I actually really enjoy Tournament Tactics, and from what I remember, Spirit Detective wasn't all that bad either. So yeah, show some love. I'll see you guys soon, and until then, peace.
You did it! What are you talking about? We all did it. I couldn't have beaten Toguro or the rest of them without your help.